Comic Book Savant, episode 308.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets minds free. And also, I know that I don't.
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week, this is going to be all about Luke Cage. I had a chance to binge the whole first season of Marvel's Luke Cage on Netflix. So that is what the episode is going to be about. If you haven't watched the complete series, stop the podcast now because we're going to go into all types of spoilers and go and do an in-depth review of all 13 episodes of season 1. So again, if you haven't had a chance and you don't want it spoiled, definitely stop the podcast now, finish watching Luke Cage, and then come back after you're done watching it so you're not getting spoiled on anything, because it's definitely, I would hate to spoil anything for this show for you guys. So again, if you haven't finished watching it, last chance, definitely stop the podcast, watch the show, come back and listen to it, and you can get more enjoyment and you're not getting spoiled on it. But that is definitely what we're covering this episode. As always, I want to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. If you enjoy this show and you want to find more comic book related podcasts, there are literally hundreds of shows over at the Comics Podcast Network on individual characters, teams, roundtable discussion podcasts, single host podcasts like myself, all focused on and around the comics business and comic books. So definitely, if you are interested to find more podcasts on these subject matters, definitely check out the Comics Podcast Network over at comicspodcast.com. Also, like to give a shout out to the sponsor for this episode, which is always InStockTrades.com, the best place on the internet to find collected editions. Right now, definitely with more and more comic movies and television shows hitting the airwaves and hitting the big screens, In Stock Trades is definitely the place to go if you want to brush up, and I think it became tying it into the subject of this episode. I'm seeing more and more shows come out on characters I'm not as versed in, so I would love to go back and read their backstories. And this is a great time right now because the companies are putting more and more trades out. So definitely now hit In Stock Trades, InStockTrades.com up. A lot of trades are hitting the markets right now on movies and characters that we're about to see on the big screen and small screen. You can get discounts as low as 35, 42, even 50% off with their deals of the week. I'm checking out the site right now. They have some awesome deals going on tying into the whole piece of movies coming up on certain characters. They have Batman Beyond Volume 2 trade paperback, 50% off, only $7.49. They have the Black Panther Epic Collection trade paperback, Panther's Rage, 50% off, only $17.49. They also have Doctor Strange, Marvel Universe Doctor Strange Digest, and that's 50% off, only $4.99. We also have Superman hardcover, Volume 2, Return of Glory, 50% off, only $14.99. Superman trade paperback, Volume 1, Before Truth, 50% off, only $8.49. We also have Star Wars Legends Epic Collection, Volume 1, Legacy. That is 50% off, only $19.99. They have Spider-Man Complete Clone Saga Epic Collection as well, 50% off, $17.49. These are big stories for these particular characters that we haven't seen in reprint, and now they're putting a more cost-effective bundle. Then you're getting 50% off of that. They also have some Wonder Woman. They have the Wonder Woman, the True Amazon hardcover. We just had the 75th anniversary from Wonder Woman. That's 50% off, only $11.49. We have the Wonder Woman, a celebration of the 75 years. That collection is 50% off, only $19.99. They have 50% off these are great prices. And definitely, as always, if you're a customer within the U.S., you get, if you place an order $50 or more, you get free shipping within the U.S. If you're an international customer, you still get the same savings, but you don't get that free shipping. But they have some of the most competitive international shipping rates around. So definitely, if you have a moment, stop by InStockTrades.com. Try the service out. If you haven't already, let them know that you heard about them first here on Comic Book Savant, and that'll help me out greatly. Now let's get into the meat of it. I'm so stoked to talk about this. I've been dying to record this episode ever since I finished watching the last episode. This is Marvel's Luke Cage. This is the third series. We've had Daredevil, which we've already had 2 seasons of already. We've had Jessica Jones, which we've seen Luke Cage before. If you had a chance to check out Jessica Jones season 1, he played a big part, and so we have been exposed to Luke Cage before this series, which is something that was different far as where we're at with these Netflix series or the Netflix Marvel universe, how it's all shaping up. Is, he was a very integral part in the Jessica Jones series, and he was about in half of the series as far as episode wise. So we've really got a chance to get a sense for who the character was and being introduced to him, but really get a chance to flesh him out more so in this series. So again, this is the third series coming. The Netflix universe for the Marvel characters is definitely growing. They've already, all of this. We have Iron Fist that's on the way. Then that leads into the Defenders, which is what this was all building up with when this was announced, that these shows were all these 4 individual shows were going to lead into the group coming together for the Defenders mega event, I guess. Since then, we've, with John Bernthal's Punisher doing so well in Daredevil season 2, that's been announced, and that's on the board. That's coming. I don't know. I know they announced Cloak and Dagger, but I can't remember if that's on another network or is it actually going to be on Netflix as well and be a part of this this universe or not. I want to say yes, but I can't remember. So don't quote me on that if it's a Netflix series or not. We know for sure that the John Bernthal's Punisher will be added on in this rotation of shows, and I think we've had confirmed Daredevil's getting a season 3, Jessica Jones is getting a season 2. Mike Coulter, who's the star of Luke Cage, made some hints that maybe it might be a Power Man and Iron Fist series after Iron Fist and the Defenders and all that happen. They might do something there. So I don't know if we'll see Luke Cage season 2 and then an Iron Man and Power Fist, or they're going to just have one season of their individual shows and maybe join them together. But he kind of hinted something like that might take place down the road. And these shows have been so hugely popular for Netflix as well as Marvel. It's no telling, because Netflix have even came out on the record and said they want to show more shows and for them to come out more quickly. Because right now we're getting about two seasons a year, as we're seeing right now, going from production, and they're filming basically nonstop. They're already into, I think they're in the middle of. I think Iron Fist has finished. They're currently filming Defenders. I think they're going to be starting production soon on Daredevil season 3, because I saw a Charlie Cox interview on the Geeking Out show with Kevin Smith, where they talked to him, and I think he was saying he was already getting ready for production for season 3. So they're really producing these shows like nonstop, which is awesome. It just sucks the wait we kind of have to get, because we're basically getting a show around about every 6 months right now, which you wish, because of the binge factor of the shows. Normally, I'll knock a show out because it's hitting such a sweet spot, and it's a little darker and more mature than what we get in the movies and on regular TV. It really hits that adult comic book vibe for me. So normally I binge these things in a day or two, maybe 3. at the most, and then you're chomping at the bit for the next show to come out. But I can't see at this rate with these characters all being connected in some way in the crossover, like how they could ramp up production any more than what they're already doing, especially with them shooting on location. But enough about that. Let me give you some more context to Luke Cage, because this is what this episode is about. We'll talk about the broader picture of the overall Marvel Netflix verse in a moment. As the cast states, we have Mike Coulter as Luke Cage. We have Simone Missick as Misty Knight. We have Frank Whaley as Detective Scarf. We have, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Marshala Ali as Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes. We have Theo Rossi as Shades Alvarez. We have Alfred Woodard as Mariah Stokes. We have Frankie Faison as Pop. We have Eric LeRae Harvey as Diamondback. And we have Rosario Dawson as Claire Temple, which if you've watched any of the other Netflix shows, she's kind of like the Marvel Netflix version of Nick Fury on the street level. We've seen her in every season to date in some form. We were introduced to her in Daredevil, season 1. She played an integral part in Daredevil season 2. She made a cameo appearance in Jessica Jones, and she's broken up. Her appearance consisted of like an episode and a half appearance in Jessica Jones, and she plays a real integral part in the Luke Cage series. She was pretty much in about half of this season. Her appearance was equivalent to kind of what Mike Coulter's appearance was in Jessica Jones, but just in a supporting role. And it looks like she's the one thread, and I think when it leads into the Defenders, she might be the leader of the Defenders, or she'll be that common bond that helps bring them all together to fight against whatever thing, because she's the one person that knows everyone. Haven't been any crossover between Daredevil and Jessica Jones outside of Claire's character. It has been crossover, of course, with Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. They know each other now. They both know her. So they haven't fully all came together or met, cross paths yet. And it'll be interesting to see when that happens, how that takes place. But I have to say, off the bat, this show tonally is different from Jessica Jones and Daredevil. They all have their certain vibes. As being an African-American male, it's really stoked in hip hop and the Black experience. This was shot on location in Harlem, just like with the other Netflix shows, which are done in Hell's Kitchen. Jessica Jones' Hell Kitchen, and more like Manhattanish a type. They shoot all this stuff in location in New York. It nails the vibe of those areas so well. A lot of the subplot, one of the main subplots that goes on, that runs concurrent through the whole series of Luke Cage, is just talking about how Harlem is trying to get back to its golden days of the Harlem Renaissance, and it being the new Harlem Renaissance. And they show those aspects in the music. They pay tribute to the roots of the character of being a blaxploitation, coming out in the 70s when blaxploitation films like Shaft and all those other kind of things, Dolomite, and all those other kind of movies. I'm just trying to think. I was born in the mid 70s, but I'm more of a child of the 80s. So it was an interesting thing. As far as Luke Cage, I didn't really know a lot about Luke Cage's roots. I knew little bits and pieces. I didn't read much about Luke Cage. Growing up in the 80s, in the mid 80s especially, is really when I came up, and I was around 8 or 10 years old, really picking out, choosing. Before that point, as a little kid, I had older cousins that were into comics, and I just kind of read whatever they gave me to read. When they handed me down comics. When I really got around 8 or 9, 10, when I could start, earning my own money, doing chores around the house, having, an allowance and things like that, buying my own comics, Luke Cage wasn't a character that was really present to know a lot about. So it was really only until Brian Michael Bendis did his run on the New Avengers, where he showcased Luke Cage and really brought him into the fold. And that's how I learned a lot about Luke Cage, and as well as Jessica Jones. I've learned, like, I did not read Alias either, so I didn't know the story of Jessica Jones as far as how it played out in season 1, because it was based on the Alias series done by Brian Michael Bendis. So the same thing with Luke Cage. A lot of the 70s stuff, I mean, I had seen pictures of Luke Cage with the bright chest shirt open, butterfly collar, the tiara, the armbands. Like, that's what I seen and knew very little of. And I thought, okay, this is a cornball character. I didn't really start seeing the significance of the character till Michael Bendis brought him back, kind of dusted him off the archives and brought him back into the mainstream comics and really revamped them. And he's been a mainstay in the Marvel Universe since that point. And it's been a very integral part, especially when you tie into the Avengers history. Then he had a run with, like, the Thunderbolts. He's become one of those top tier, heroes in the Marvel Universe. We haven't seen it so much at this point in the cinematic universe. He's more painted at this point in the Luke Cage series as more as a reluctant hero. I don't know, I'm getting so tongue-tied today. which is interesting, because it's the opposite, but again, it's the beginning phases of what becomes this great leader and this great character. Again, the show is framed so beautifully, just like with Daredevil, and as well as Jessica Jones, in the backdrop of New York. The New York in the different boroughs in the city, in the parts of the city they shoot in, is a character all in itself into the show that you have to account for, and it just drips that. Every episode is named after a Gang Starr, which is a hip hop rap group from the 90s. Each episode name is a name of a song off of that they did over the years, I thought that was like kind of a cool homage to that group. It's dripped in hip hop from a lot of groups that came out of Harlem or in New York at the time frame, and then they do an awesome mix with the soundtrack. This is like the first soundtrack I've seen for like a television show that I would straight go out to the store and buy. You don't really talk about soundtracks when you get into like the movies and the movie scores. Like, the score to this show is a mix between old school hip hop that I grew up on, even classic 70s music. They do a good blend of modernizing the character, but at the same time giving you flashbacks to the music that was popular at the time when this character was really in his heyday, and his creation in the 70s when it had its run. So I loved that the people that produced the show really had a love and affinity for the character, and had a lot of knowledge, like I said, which unfortunately I didn't have. I didn't know the specifics of Luke Cage's origin story. That his name, he changed his name to Luke Cage. His name was Carl Lucas. Like, little aspects of that, it became very integral. Like, I really got my education up watching this show about this character, because it was just stuff that I did not know. And I just kind of, took it from where Bendis took it and ran from there. But they didn't recap or like linger in the books that I read about his past. I know it was an experiment that gave him his diamond hard skin. I didn't know about the doctor, the specifics, that he was incarcerated, that, he at one point, he was in the military, special services. He was also a sheriff at one point, and he was framed for a crime he didn't commit, and he was incarcerated. It was all these different things about Luke Cage that I didn't know, that I got to see and learn from watching this series, and it was just handled so well. And I have to say this too: the cast of this show is phenomenal from top to bottom, and it's crazy because all the shows have been cast so well. I mean, it's been some people that don't like the actor that plays Foggy in Daredevil. Some people complained about Ritter. I don't know, I can't remember her first name. Being Jessica Jones, which she didn't really look like Jessica Jones to me from the Jessica Jones I knew from Young Avengers and from the Avengers books, but when you watch the series, she encompasses the essence of the character. And by the time the series was finished, or even halfway through, I really was sold and believed that was Jessica Jones, and she's my Jessica Jones going forward. Like, like she was the right actress for the role, and everybody doesn't have to look like a carbon copy of images that artists have rendered in the book. Sometimes it's finding the right actor or actress to play a specific part. And I feel like more so, and I've had no complaints about any of the casting in the other shows, it just really was, they picked the perfect actor in every role, it seemed. And the creator and the producer and the creator of the show, I forgot to take his name down when I was doing the show, putting together the show notes. But I've heard him talk a lot, doing different interviews, especially during in the summer, during the convention circuit they were doing. Especially, I saw multiple interviews that he did with different outlets at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, and just his love and affinity for it. And it goes deeper in the cast, even characters that I'm not listing that were just little side characters were perfect notes. And he hit a lot of, he plucked from a lot of classic African-American shows, or really classic shows that people watch. Like, he picked up a lot of different actors from Oz. That was a huge HBO series about prison. He also plucked heavily from The Wire. We saw different actors pop up in little cameo appearances, different historical hip-hop people like Fab Five Freddy from Yo MTV Raps from back in the day. He had a little speaking cameo in it. Method Man had a cameo in it. A lot of different hip-hop faces popped up, and like I said, actors from a lot of classic Black and African American TV shows that are classic. That, or The Wire is known in the classic to everyone at this point because the word of mouth was so strong about that. Different actors from those shows as well. Like I said, in small roles, but you saw them and it was like, that's so cool. He picked the perfect people. He knew exactly who he wanted for the roles, and he went out, and I don't know how he got all these people, but he did. And it just adds that extra sense, that extra kiss of that they really loved what they were doing. He loves this material. Another thing I have to say is that, with the Netflix series, and it's nothing, no knock against that, the actual cinematic universe, but I think these Netflix shows work so well, especially for these characters, because they're more street level characters, that you can really, flesh out the characters, flesh out the villains, and do a more slow burn where, certain points, I feel like the villains, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, are more set up as cannon fodder, because at the end of the day, they have a lighter tone. They're more family friendly. They are not going to get into, even though Captain America Civil War was a darker film, it's still at the same time, they have a formula where it's a little bit more light, colorful, and has that more family-friendly tone where he can go dark and go really adult with the Netflix series here, and you can kind of slow burn and build up to your villain, and they can carry just as much weight without overshadowing the hero by any means. And it was a weird thing in watching this series, and I made this comment when I reviewed Jessica Jones. Mike Coulter is really good as Luke Cage, and I think I understood it more now, and I kind of felt like he was kind of subdued in Jessica Jones, and he's very much the central piece, and he's very charismatic to a point, and has a very nice presence on screen without even having to say anything. But I felt like he's the star of this show, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, he is not just all about him. He's a type of character that, and he's in every episode, almost every scene, but he's kind of here, how Coulter's take on him is, he's very intelligent and very introspective, but he doesn't overpower you. Like with Daredevil, his story with him overcoming his disabilities, everything that goes on, he's the center of it, and he's like right dab in the middle of it. He's involved so deeply with every person. Like Luke is as well, but his personality, he has this so laid back and cool demeanor that certain times I feel like Daredevil, Matt Murdock, is so heavy. Like, it's like he feels like he's cursed. And Luke kind of has the same thing, but it's like you don't feel, I mean, maybe it's because of his powers and, you know, he's fighting these street thugs and he has this rock hard skin and bullets bounce off of him and everything, but you don't feel that sympathy, you know, for him. And unlike, you know, other heroes where they're, you know, with Daredevil, he fights at the night, you know, in The Punisher, he fights and kills in the shadows. And Jessica Jones, she was a private detective and she did a lot of things behind the scene. Luke Cage is Luke Cage 24/7. There's no alter ego for him to change out of. That he's just who he is. He walks the streets of Harlem during the day, night. People know who he is. He doesn't try to hide from it. He's reluctant in showing his powers or his abilities, as he likes to say, for a lot of it. But, you know, certain events happen that lead up to him just having to come out in the forefront. And when he does, he doesn't, shy away from it. He stands up and is accounted for. So he can't cut off. Like with the other heroes, Matt fights justice in two ways. As Daredevil at night and as Matt Murdock during the day being a lawyer. Luke Cage is Luke Cage 24/7. And there's repercussions to that because he's always a target, because after he stepped out into the limelight to say he was going to fight crime, the people find out where you live. Where he lived was attacked. It was actually blown up with a rocket. You know, anyone that he cared about, once people knew that or saw Luke Cage hanging out with that person, people died because of it or were hurt or kidnapped because of that fact. And the way he handles it with such grace and never like rages, you know, he always keeps an even keel and he tries to help and save everyone, makes it different and allows other characters around him, I think more so in other shows, really rise to the forefront. The one thing in watching the 13 episodes that really hit me like strongly is that, you know, Simone Missick, Alfre Woodard, Rosario Dawson, all these female characters are very prominent in Luke Cage's development through the 13 episodes. And they're very much all standouts. And I feel like they're kind of the backbone to the whole season. Because, you know, Luke very early in the season has interactions with Misty Knight. And you think they might have, you know, they hook up. But then it turns into more of a admiration and friendship because of all the issues that you find out that Misty has, and she kind of forces Luke away. And then we're introduced to Claire, you know, reconnecting with him, and you know, that takes off. And by the end of the season, they kind of set that up as his new romantic interest, which is interesting to me because when I know from the Bendis comics later on that Luke and Jessica, you know, get together, married, and have a child together. I haven't kept up on it, so I don't know if they're still married or if, you know, because they've had a few universe-changing events. I don't know if all that's still in play or in place. I don't know in the Marvel Universe. And I kind of like them together as a couple. And like I said, during the Bendis New Avengers run and stuff that I read with them two together playing off one another. And you saw glimpses of that chemistry in Jessica Jones. I think the biggest thing that I was shocked of, they made reference to Jessica Jones, but she never even showed up in the series, which was, I don't know, kind of disappointing in a way, but I think it allowed Mike Coulter's Luke Cage character to really be set up and established going forward. And we know when the Defenders come up, they're going to cross paths again, which will be very interesting because Simone Missick had let it slip in an interview, I think last week, right before the series was released on Netflix, that she was confirmed. She confirmed basically that she's going to be in the Defenders. So it's going to be real interesting when they all get together, that Luke doesn't mess around with Jessica. He hasn't messed around. I mean, he has a romantic thing starting with Claire, and then he had sex with Misty. So, and it's a funny scene towards the later episodes. I want to say episode like 11 or 12, where Misty is talking to Claire, and they kind of, Misty let it out the bag that she kind of slept with him one time, and, and Claire's, kind of, they're looking at each other, and they were connecting on just another situation, and it's this they kind of chuckled, at the same time, because Misty can clearly tell that something is, growing between Luke and Claire, so she can kind of see it and kind of raise her eyebrow. It was an ongoing joke throughout the show about getting coffee, code for let's go have sex, which was a really funny running joke that was throughout the series. Another thing is Mahershala Ali was phenomenal. I mean, he was so charming yet alarmingly frightening as Cornell Stokes, aka Don't Call Me Cottonmouth. He was just so good. I loved his character, and he stole every scene that he was in this series. I mean, he just captured your attention from the first second you see him to the very last. He just grabs your attention and grabs your focus where you can't turn away, which was phenomenal. And I can say that about so many performances, but he really did a great job as Cornell. Like I said, Don't Call Me Cottonmouth Stokes. Theo Rossi did a great job as Shades, and he was just a cool, you just see certain characters when you look at them on screen, just how they're presented. He was always like the coolest dude in the room, no matter who he was in a room with and who he's around. He was really the coolest guy in the room. And I think, that I could honestly see him for Emmy being nominated for a supporting actor in this series. I doubt it'll happen because, I don't know if these Netflix Marvel series aren't getting the shine that I feel like they deserve come award season, but I think his performance was truly on par with that. But I can also say that about Mahershala, as well, that really just great acting from, again, top to bottom. I love the cameo they did with Stan Lee in this movie. In this series was actually, and I thought it was kind of different and funny, and it was like I noticed it, and I was like, wow, that's deep. That he actually wasn't in person. Did an in-person cameo. They kind of had because a lot of violence was going on with the power, with Luke Cage and the police and things of that nature. And they had like a Uncle Sam, We Want You poster, but it was a police poster, and it was Stan Lee. It was just like in the background, and you could have missed it. It was in one of the later episodes. I want to say more like episode 8, 9. It's just for a minute. It's just up on the side of a wall for a store, a bodega that's on the corner or whatever, and you see it, and it just kind of just made me chuckle. It's like he does cameos in everything, even in the TV shows. It was a lot of Easter eggs throughout, tying into the larger universe of the Marvel Netflix verse, which I really dug. In the first episode or two, Turk, if you're not familiar with Turk Barrett is the ongoing gun runner in the Daredevil show. He was in season 1 and season 2, where Daredevil kept putting him away, but he keeps showing back up. He pops up here, and it was kind of subtle at first because he's in the first episode or 2 of Luke Cage, and he's right there in the barbershop that Luke Cage works in, and he's playing chess with a guy. And you're like, at first I'm seeing him, and I'm like, is that Turk? And they're calling him Turk, but it's not clicking. Like, is that the dude from Daredevil? And I literally had to go look it up. It was like, that is Turk. That is dude from Daredevil. And it just was that was cool that they tied that into Daredevil. They also they had a nice little segment at the beginning of one of the episodes. They had a narration piece where you hear Trish Walker, which we know her from Jessica Jones, which is AKA Hellcat, Patsy Trish Walker, that has her radio call-in show, and you hear the audio from a call-in segment where Trish is, stating, she's asking a question to her audience about Luke Cage being a hero or a menace, and people are calling into the show that are from Harlem, and they're like, how cool, and, he walks the streets and everyone knows him and he's a really good personable guy. And they're like, if you know him, if you meet him in person, you would know he's not a menace. He's a true hero. And, they kind of let you know, she's like, Luke, to let you know that people are hearing about your good deeds all the way here, in Manhattan or whatever, and keep up the good work. Excuse me. So now, like in the Jessica Jones universe, boom, they're all there in New York. New York's massive with the boroughs and everything. That news is spreading about the work and what he was doing in Harlem. We also had another cameo from Benjamin Donovan that we know from Daredevil, which he's Wilson Fisk, lawyer. So you get a chance to, you see him intertangled in there. So he, I guess, like him or his firm is, the lawyer of the villains in this Marvel Netflix verse, which is kind of cool. So he's in an employ, because you see him pop up a few times here and there for Carnell as well as Mariah later on. Excuse me, in a series. So he's in the employ of the whole Stokes family. We also get a chance to see Blake Tower, which we know him from season 2 of Daredevil. He was the assistant DA that was the Punisher was bearing down on a DA that he eventually kills, and he's like, under her thumb, and Jessica's trying to, not Jessica, but Claire is pressing Blake for information about the Punisher in season 2. So he's very prominent in the Daredevil Punisher storyline of season 2 of Daredevil. So you get a chance to see him, albeit briefly, towards the end episodes. I want to say like episode 9, 10, or 10 and 11 of Luke Cage. You see him as the DA's office gets involved when it's a shootout at what was the club? Club Harlem or whatever the club that the Stokes family owns. He pops up as well. Excuse me. So all in all, to wrap all this up, as far as my rating scale, and if you're not used to the rating, if you don't know about the rating scale, my TV rating scale goes as follows: must watch, required viewing, good watch, on demand, or just skip it. Excuse me. And for this series, it's definitely a must watch for me. It just has a totally different vibe. These shows are taking, when we talk about other comic book shows in the Netflix shows, you have to classify them differently because they have the license of freedom that network shows don't have. So, I thought about ranking the shows. So we've had four shows, 3 shows, 4 seasons or 4 seasons worth of episodes at this point. If I rank them from worst to best, which this is on a real crazy scale because we're talking about shows that are at minimum an 8 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. So when I rank these, it's really, these shows are just barely edging each other out. And I feel like this list could totally shift depending on your mood, especially. And I feel like for me, 3 out of the 4 could, or just like that close from topping one another. And it just depends where your head at or which your mood is in at the time. So number 4 for me would be Daredevil season 2. I thought the first half of Daredevil season 2 was phenomenal. You got past the kind of halfway part when the hand got so heavily involved and like over involved. It kind of felt like it hurt and slowed down the second half of season 2 for me. I felt like they went back to the lab with the hallway fight scenes. I thought the fight choreography was not as good as this first season, which kind of took me out of some parts of it. It just had an overall intense grittiness to that first season that always this calls back to my head. and I didn't feel like they topped it. I felt like they copied a lot of it, but didn't elevate it at all in it. So that kind of hurts it for me, and where that sits firmly as the number 4 slot for me. Number 3 is Jessica Jones season 1. Very depressing. It was very hard to watch, but it was really good. And I've talked about that in detail in a review for Jessica Jones, and I'll put links in the show notes on the website, so you can go back to those episodes and see if you want the in-depth review that I made on these individual, to know my thoughts in detail about these individual seasons. Luke Cage, but just barely gets nudged out at number 2 from Daredevil season 1. It's just like I said, it just had a rough grittiness to the fight scenes. That hallway scene, oh my goodness, the introduction to the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk was just phenomenal. It just stays at the top for me, but just barely edges out Luke Cage season 1, because I think Luke Cage was so different from what we saw in the other shows. And it just was a mellow vibe. It was so easy to binge. Like, Jessica Jones at parts were hard, where you had to take a break just because some of the stuff that happened was so horrific. But you couldn't stop watching. But sometimes it was just like, whoa, this is sensory overload. I have to kind of catch my breath for a second. Because it really puts you steeped in that world, and to make you feel like she felt, and you felt the horrible things that Kilgrave did to her and to other people as well. So sometimes you had to turn to not look directly into the sunlight, so to speak. But with Luke Cage, it was just like him, a smooth ride all the way through, just a comfortable viewing experience that just was. You wanted to know more about the character. You wanted to know more about the ward. You wanted to know about these side characters. Like Misty had a phenomenal story arc that goes through. Detective Scarf, Cottonmouth, Diamondback's, relation to Luke Cage, them being half brothers, Claire's, journey, her, finally deciding what she wanted to do, that she wanted to help, powered individuals, and kind of be, that medical person that they can go to, and that she really knows that's what she wants to do. And you see her study, trying to help Luke and trying to learn more about his condition. She's gotten to know, Matt, she helped Luke, in Jessica Jones season 1, and then carrying over to this show. So she was already familiar, and, it being something that she's never seen before, and her medical knowledge, based on her just overall instincts and her street knowledge, how that becomes a very valuable asset in the realm of, treating powered or special individuals. So it all comes together just into a really, really, really good mix. So I don't know going forward. Like I said, I can't remember for sure if the Cloak and Dagger series will be a Netflix show. I do know Punisher will be. I don't know when we'll get that, because at this point, my understanding, if they keep it on par with what we've seen, we get 2 seasons a year. So I'm assuming the next one up would be Iron Fist, then the Defenders. Then I'm assuming next year we would because pretty much I want to say we're done for this year. Because we had season 2 of Daredevil. Yeah. So I would imagine, I think it's been 2. I want to say it's been 2 shows a year. Maybe it's 3, but definitely 2. So I would think for next year, we would probably get, this would be right out to the end of the year. Then maybe, I want to say February or April, around February, April is when, last year when Jessica Jones dropped. So maybe, that's kind of the where they're going to go, is we get Iron Fist, then that leads directly into Defenders. They even did at Comic-Con a teaser, graphic, lead in or little teaser trailer graphic for the Defenders. So that's definitely going to be coming. We might have 3 series this year because, like I said, I think they're in pre-production, if not production, for Daredevil season 3. So maybe we might get that also in 2017. But for sure, the next 2 series that are up for bat will be Iron Fist and would be the Defenders. So, only time will tell. We got Punisher. Like I said, I can't remember about Cloak and Dagger for sure. If you're not familiar with Cloak and Dagger, Cloak and Dagger is an interracial. They're an interracial couple. Cloak is the African American male. He has the power of like darkness, and he can teleport around. And then he's like this body embodiment of darkness, where he can teleport and fight people in this dark like dimension. And then Dagger is Caucasian female, which she's like pure light. Her powers are like hard light constructs that she shoots these daggers made of light. They're like runaways that are like best friends that become involved in a relationship. They debuted in Spider-Man in early mid 80s, and I don't think they've been used that much more recently. You know what? The last time I really saw them in the forefront, because I reread Civil War when Captain America Civil War came out, and Cloak was with Cap's team, being the underground secret Avengers, and he would teleport them from place to place. So that's the last time I remembered seeing Cloak and Dagger. They've had a lot of limited series. They've tried to launch different series. They've never been mega successful. They're cool characters, but I just don't think they never modernized their stories to bring them to the forefront. But it would be cool to see. Maybe definitely in a Netflix series, because I think just the tones of them being in a relationship. She wears kind of a skimpy, kind of sexy outfit. It would be something different, and to see a superhero team that's immediately a relationship, because even though from the comics I got a chance to see Jessica Jones and Luke Cage be together, she wasn't a practicing hero at that time. She was a news reporter, and then he was the superhero. So it will be interesting to see an active superhero team that are in a relationship, fighting crime together, how that dynamic would play off on screen, on camera. So I'm looking forward to that. But again, I'll do research and I'll give a follow-up next episode for sure about if that is to be a Netflix series or that's going to be on another network or not. Because I think the success of that show potentially would hinge on what network that would be on, because it's definitely a little bit darker material. As always, you can find me at comicbooksavant.com. That's the website. You can find me on all forms of social media, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat at comicbooksavant. Follow me, send me questions, feedback, anything like that, and I'll cover it on the show for you. That's all I got for you guys this week. Next week, will finally hit that review up for Star Trek Beyond, and then probably the following week I'll do my summer comic movie review for the whole summer, and to wrap that up, so I'll finally be caught up on that stuff that I was behind in that hiatus, that forced hiatus I had to take. So then we'll be all caught up with that stuff, and then I have some comic reviews planned. I'm trying to piece together, and I'm nervous trying to figure out how to do it. Like I said, I want to shift to do some content on YouTube. I have an episode that I'm trying to put together to see if I want to be in front of the camera or just do it as a voiceover with some graphics or whatever. I'm going to do a cutting my stack little episode for YouTube. When I finish that, I'm going to work on it. Definitely try to finish it up this week. But as soon as I have that and roll it out, I'll give you guys the links so you can watch that, and I'm going to push, going forward to try to do some things and play around with some video, and because I've done audio for so long, I want a new fun challenge. So I'm looking to push that as a a new thing and see how that goes and see how you guys might like that. So that's coming too. It's going to be a cutting the stack episode based around the Punisher, series that I was that just ended, not the restarted one. I'm trying to remember the creative team on it, and I'm totally blanking. But it had a 20 issue run. So I'm gonna Nathan Edmondson. Yeah, Nathan Edmondson, because he was writing that in Black Widow, and I finally finished that Punisher series. So that's what I'm doing, that first Cutting Your Stack episode on for I'm about to say Netflix, for YouTube. So that's coming down the pike as well. Like I said, I'm working hard on that, trying to figure out how to do it. It's my first time doing any type of long form or medium form video. So something I'm nervous about, and I'm a perfectionist, so that's why it takes me even longer, because I want to make sure it's quality. So, but that'll be coming down the pike. But as soon as I have it ready for you guys, I'll announce it first here on the podcast and give you the links on where to find it. And I'll have links to the other reviews of the previous episodes of the Marvel Netflix shows in the show notes on the website. Again, comicbooksavant.com. And I will see you guys next week for another episode of Comic Book Savant. You guys take care.
And into lyrical wholeness.